The Roos and Hawks are the toast of the town. We take a look at what makes the top two teams so formidable. Plus, the shock loss of the Cattery that could cost the Lions $1 million. Kate McCarthy, our special guest to help us unpack it all. This is The W Show, thanks to NAP. Certainly is. Sarah Olle in the host chair today and back as she is every week, although not for too long because she's got a flight to catch to Darwin. The award-winning journalist, Sarah Black. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. How are you going? I'm looking forward to getting up north. It's going to be good.
The hair, though, that could be an issue.
I know. It's going to be very Monica from Friends. I just accepted the fate.
And joining us today on the panel, 2017 All-Australian Kate McCarthy. When in doubt, Kate, just go with Sarah today.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Just tail on the back of her, and it's been it's been good. It's been a great weekend of football, obviously for the W, but getting into some very, very important games coming up this week. 2 more rounds to go. Absolutely,
plenty to cover this week in footy, and of course this week it's also Indigenous round, so plenty to celebrate. Actually, across the next fortnight, we are going to celebrate and learn about not just these stories on these gorgeous jumpers that we see every year. They're absolutely stunning. But we'll also celebrate and highlight the rich tapestry that is the Indigenous culture, of course. The Dreamtime match in Darwin, which Sarah will be at, that is the showpiece, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But Sarah, I've got a question for you off the top when it comes to Richmond and their skipper, Katie Brennan. Is she going to be available? Because she finished that loss to the D's with that ankle injury, and we know she's got a history of foot issues.
Yeah, she's listed as a test in this week's injury list with an ankle concern. I'll be curious to see how it ends up with this one. As you said, she's got a history of foot and ankle injuries. She missed much of the early seasons with ankle issues. The language that the Tigers have used makes me a bit hesitant. They said we will give her every chance to be ready to play Essendon, which, you know, makes me think that they might be more leaning on the side of caution ahead of finals rather than rush her for this Essendon game.
No, I'm going to go the other way. I think there was no chance she will miss this game. She will absolutely play purely because this is a final for them. If they lose their last 2 games, they won't even be playing finals. So they will do everything they can to get her up for this game, to potentially give her next week to get right. With the ankle to it, it looked sort of more syndesmosis-y than anything, which you can inject. So I'd be surprised if she didn't play. That's just purely my thoughts on it for where they are in the season. So I think she'd be pretty hard-pressed not to make it out there. But obviously it's that risk and reward. If you name her and she plays and she can hardly move in the goal square, well, have you really made the right decision? So a big one for the Tigers to make.
Let's go from one injury to another. And I think some players are just too brave for their own good. And of course, I'm referring to Chelsea Randall and Eliza James here. I mean, just watching that back sends a shiver through my spine. Eliza James was subbed out with concussion. Chelsea Randall, though, she passed the concussion test and came back on. I mean, Kate, you would have played against Chelsea. Is she the bravest player in the league? Because I feel like time and time again we're seeing her go back with the flight of the ball.
Yeah, well, she's constantly voted by her peers as the most courageous player when the MVP awards come out from the AFLPA, and you sort of get, I think you get a nomination from each club and the whole group votes on it, and she's been named a number of times as that. But I think I had coaches and I was open to say to my coaches, like, if you're picking me to play and you're picking me to go back with the flight, don't pick me. I'm never going to do it. I never did it as a player. I just thought too much about it. And by the time you think that half second, the moment's gone. So I'd always just pretend and then kind of turn and be like, oh, I'm getting front and centre. Oh, our 12 forward needs to compete more than that. And I just cannot believe Eliza James running full face that way. Yeah. Chelsea Randall full face the other way. It makes me feel a bit unwell watching it again.
So Chelsea is brave, but I tell you what, she's also funny.
Hey guys, just wanted to say, I hope you're having a great day.
I mean, what do we call that? It's part said panda, part chipmunk. It looks sore, whatever it is.
Definitely chipmunk, I reckon. As soon as I saw that, I got on the phone to the Crows, like, what's going on here? And she did require scans, but has been cleared to play, no facial fractures. So she'll be facing North Melbourne this weekend.
Looks like she got half of her wisdom teeth out.
Yes.
And like half her face is sort of Hey Arnold style. But yeah, no, not good, poor thing.
Now, you mentioned, Sarah, what is going on? And that was the question before the game at Vic Park on Sunday between Collingwood and the Adelaide Crows. You were there, you were on the ground. Pray do tell, what was going on?
Did you get a shovel out?
I didn't get a shovel out. No, I didn't. But Jess Berger, Collingwood's head of footy, did. There's a few shots of her with a shovel in hand. There was a burst pipe under the surface at Vic Park, and, you know, it was, Matthew Clark said post-match, it was identified 3 hours before the game, and it just could not be stemmed. They piled sawdust, sand in there, and it was eventually ticked off only a couple of minutes before the players ran out for that final warm-up before their first bounce. So, you know, it was sort of touch and go. I was prepping pars as if the game was going to be delayed.
You mentioned Matthew Clark, and you said off camera, Sarah, he is usually rather unflappable, not so much post-match.
It was pretty shabby. I think, I know we were here 3 hours before the game, and it was clearly an issue. So for us not to have reached resolution with 2 minutes before the game, I thought we need to be a bit better than that. Let's get it sorted and make a clear decision earlier, in my opinion.
So there's another game this weekend at Vic Park between Collingwood and Carlton, those old foes, which will be a lot of fun indeed. I'm just wondering, guys, projecting forward when it comes to Vic Park, which we know has that historic link to Collingwood, and I love the fact that we're still playing at these really historic, boutique, nostalgic grounds. Do we see AFLW games being played there in the future? Because during the week, Vic Park, Sarah, it's a glorified dog park, really.
Yeah, it's a council park that, you know, people are more than welcome to bring their dogs to. So it gets a lot of wear and tear from foot traffic over the week. And it's a real tricky one because it's a council, so you only have so much, council-run park, you only have so much sway over it. Collingwood obviously love it. There's not many other options for the Pies. They can't play games at the AIA Centre. It doesn't just really work. But I think there may need to be a few more provisions put in place. They've had issues with the turf in the past.
You know what could work really well? Marvel. Marvel could work really well for games, seeing as so many clubs are seemingly having issues with their home grounds at different times of the year. So that might be where we need to go because we need the availability, we need the best product we can get, and it's just sitting there.
So Sarah was at Vic Park, but Kate and I were at GMHBA Stadium on Sunday where we saw the Cats absolutely stun the Brisbane Lions. Now, Kate, there are losses, and there are losses, and there are $1 million losses. I mean, could this cost the Lions the McClellan Trophy? Just for those who don't know, the McClellan Trophy is for the club, so it takes into account the home and away season for AFL and AFLW, the club that has the most points at the end of both seasons. So it's 4 points for the men's, 8 points for the women's, and it could mean, if as we look at this graphic, Kate, that the Lions are in a little bit of trouble.
So they are still a chance if they were to win their last two, which against the Swans and the Saints, so very winnable games for them. And Hawthorn have Melbourne and Richmond, so that's going to be all to play for. But yes, essentially they were in the top position until last week and now have let that sort of out of their grasp. But it's crazy that we'll have potentially, well, we have for the first time two teams that hold both premiership cups. Not technically being the champion club in the league. So I know it's home and away wins and losses, and I know I'll cop this because I'm a Brisbane Lions fan and I'm one-eyed, but I just find that really, really strange that you can have two teams that have won essentially the premiership in the calendar year still not win the trophy. And even if the Lions did go back-to-back, it's the home and away season, so they still wouldn't be the McClellan Trophy winners?
Well, it sort of happened last year, didn't it, Kate? So the girls won the flag, obviously, and the boys made the grand final, but it was Melbourne who won the McClellan Trophy, despite the fact that both sides went out in straight sets. So, yeah, it's a quirk in the system. Whether it's something that needs to be adjusted in the future, I'm not sure.
$1 million, though.
I know.
That's all right, isn't it?
A lot of money.
All right, we are coming down to the business end of the season. So let's take a look at the live ladder. And Sarah, this is something you wrote about for AFL.com.au earlier this week, that 12 teams mathematically are still in the hunt for the final 8. Now, maths isn't my strong suit, but 12 don't go into 8.
No, it does not. Draw that line between Geelong and the Western Bulldogs. That's where the delineation is. The Cats are still well and truly in the hunt. They kept their season alive. They'll have to beat West Coast and Adelaide in order to do so, and hope that there's a bit of havoc ahead of them on the ladder.
And the other thing to consider is essentially the top four are sort of, they're technically not locked in, but with their percentage and the way that we've sort of seen the season go, it would take a miracle, because percentage in the women's game really does differ a little bit because of the difference in the scores. So you can sort of make it up or lose percentage a little bit differently than we see in the men's game. But essentially the top four have pretty much locked their ticket away for finals. So those 12 are now vying for the final sort of 4 positions in the top 8. So this is one element of the reduced sort of rounds that makes it so exciting, because every game does count, and particularly as we go through the last 2 rounds, there's no real dead rubbers. every game is on the line, which is a real difference than what we see sort of later in the men's season. So it's definitely a big plus for the fixture for that side of things.
Looking at the live ladder, though, there is one team that is unbeaten. Yes, North Melbourne had a draw earlier in the season, but they are unbeaten. And guys, they are looking like the team to beat. Of course, they had the grand final heartbreak of last year, but my word, sir, they're looking commanding, aren't they?
Absolutely ferocious. This is the sort of North Melbourne we saw when they burst onto the scene. They were demolishing teams, and they're back in that rich vein of form. We had Tess Craven on, credit to the girls, earlier this week. Nice little plug there. And she was saying that she's really noticed a difference on the field in terms of that full ground cohesion. Tess plays on the outside, wing, half back, so she's often in those disposal chains, and she's seeing, you know, a much more cohesive unit, which we're now seeing on the scoreboard.
Well, they're essentially number one in most stats, if not all stats that you want to be number one in for this season, and that's scores for, that's defending scores as well. They've just been so impressive, but it's those players like Tess Craven, it's sort of their bottom 10 players and their younger players who have really stepped up this season. They've started to play sort of around that 30 to 50 matches now, and they're the ones that are making the difference. We've got the ultimate reliable players that we expect so much of and just keep getting better and better, like Riddell, Carney when she's playing, Garner, even Sheila, her season has been phenomenal. But for me, it's that sort of bottom rung of players who are really, really making this team what they are at the moment, and they're part of the reason that they are undefeated. And you're right, that cohesiveness across the ground, it's very hard to stop.
So they're the number one seed, but sitting in second place, and a bit of a surprise packet this season, much to delight of many, is Hawthorn. So that brings us to our star power, thanks to Nav. And we're going to highlight their coach, Daniel Webster, who has done such an incredible job, Sarah, with getting this team set up for their first finals campaign. What a turnaround. It's
been amazing from Daniel Webster, and I think goes to show that the depth that's developing within the coaching ranks across the competition. So Dan's been at the Lions for quite a few years now. He was really highly regarded there, and has built up years of experience, you know, working one of the best programs in the country. So then he's been able to come to Hawthorn. He's already coached a team in his own right in the Quaffle, and been able to incorporate that, and he's had a really strong game plan that he's drilled into these players from day dot. They worked it through the VFLW season, and now into the AFLW season. We're seeing the rewards of it, and it's fun footy.
It absolutely is. So the other first-year coaches, Sam Wright, Daisy Pearce, Tam Hyatt, but Kate, Daniel Webster's doing something incredible, and as Sarah mentions, bringing that IP from Brisbane, which is so integral to all of this.
Well, the thing that he's also done is he's created a game plan that works with what they've got. So I mean, that could have been his plan no matter what, but we'll give him the credit that he's come down and he's seen that he's got some very skillful athletes, some good athletes in general that can run really well, some good talls or good key forwards that play a good sort of brand and very competitive one-on-one, but his ability to identify that and then give them a game plan, and you can see there's a clear game plan that they're executing, and I think he needs to be given so much of the praise because not much has changed personnel-wise. They've just sort of come out and played a very good brand of football.
This is a question for both of you. What do we make of the fixture that they've had? Of course, you can only play the teams that are in front of you, but the loss to Adelaide, that stands out. But a win against Geelong, which was a preliminary finalist last year, and some smashings of teams. But is this a soft draw?
Well, I think you can say sort of soft draw, but it's what the draw sometimes comes out as depending on where you finished last year. So Hawthorn were 14th last year, Port were 15th, another team that's inside the 8 now. On the other hand, the Suns were 5th and the Swans were 8th. They've dropped from 5th to 17th and the Swans 8th to 15th. I know the Swans have had a few injuries around that, but that just shows that if you have a year that's a little bit tougher and you finish towards the bottom end of the ladder, it actually sets you up in a really good position for the next year to really launch because of the opponents that you'll get as a result of this sort of weighted draw that we have in the AFLW.
It's quite literally the luck of the draw sometimes. You know, you look at the teams they've played, and Collingwood and Gold Coast would have been earmarked as, you know, harder games than they've actually proven to be. So, you know, if you group their wins and losses, they've sort of had 5 easier games. 2, I put Freo and West Coast in the middle, and then Adelaide and Geelong as tougher opponents. But you have to look at the way that they've dismantled some of these sides. So yes, they've been benefited by the draw, but they're also performing, you know, outrageously well.
Plenty of players are flourishing under Coach Webster, and one is Mattia Breed.
Hats off to this man. I have so much respect for him and so much appreciation. I think that it's really underrated how much a coach can make a difference. And I mean, like, loved Beck last year, had a great relationship with her, and I think it's just a different dynamic. Like I said, Webby really knows what he wanted to get out of me and what he wanted to get out of the playing group, and really how to utilise the skills and talent that we had. And I think that's made obviously a real impact, as you can see based on our performance this year. So it's just been really exciting and like really easy to get around.
So Sarah, for the unacquainted, how was Mattia's role changed this year under Daniel Webster?
She was sort of she was used everywhere with Beck Goddard. She was in and out of the side. I think what's happened is also she's gone away and got a lot fitter as well. So she's got a really good tank underneath her and is now all but a full-time midfielder. A really strong body around the contest. And I think picking up on Kate's point earlier about the fact that, Webster has come in and worked with what he's got. He's identified that the breed can be used as a big body around the contest. And it's worked both for her and for the team as a whole.
All right, time now for the deep dive with Gemma and Kate. And Gem, Port Adelaide, it's a club we probably should be showing a little bit more love and affection for. Over to you.
Yada Pulte is on a 4-match winning streak, Kate, and part of it, a lot of it, is because of the way they're using the ball going forward and once the ball's inside 50.
Yeah, it is, and it's less reliance on certain players, which we'll get to in a minute, but you can see the last 4 games compared to the first 5, every metric that we have on screen there points for the amount of goal kickers, which is the really important one, the inside 50s, the marks inside 50s, and the goal efficiency has all increased. So the one that we love, 5 goal kickers now hitting the scoreboard as opposed to just under 3 most weeks.
Yeah, so it's the way that they're choosing to send the ball forward, but also the representation they've got around. In the past, it's been we go to Gemma Houghton, she's in a 3-on-1, she doesn't get the ball, comes straight back over our heads. But this is what we're seeing. These are the 4 players that they were focused on in the first 5 weeks of the season to kick their goals. They were their targets going forward, but they were also kind of the only ones that anyone is even considering inside the forward 50. What's changed since then? Yeah,
so they are still sort of looking at these players, which is perfect because they're brilliant players for them and help them with their structure. But the important thing when you've got tools to target, you need these guys at their feet and you need these guys in the structure of it. Yeah. So they're smalls, they're mids as well, spending a little bit more time either deep in the forward line and resting or just giving a license to push all the way inside forward 50 and as a result hit the scoreboard. So all of these 4 players have hit the scoreboard since that change in the last 4 matches.
Yeah, so that ability to sit at the feet of a Gemma Houghton or an Ash Saint, so if they don't take the mark, there's representation there to at least equalise. So we've got some vision to show some of this. The first one being the space. So this kick is perfectly to the advantage of 3 forwards. So it's Caitlin Wendland, Gemma Houghton and Jasmine Stewart. It goes into the space that they can run into. So even if they don't get a clean first possession, they're able to create an opportunity. Caitlin Pope takes his mark, kicks a goal. There's a few more other examples here, Kate.
Yeah, and each time you'll see that the kick is long and high, which gives them an opportunity to reference where the footy's going to go, have a look where their key forward is in Gemma Houghton in a couple of these clips, and then get to the feet and hit the scoreboard, which is really impressive. And as a small, sometimes it's really easy to get lost. In Port Adelaide, though, at the moment, though, if I was a small, I'd be referencing either Gemma Houghton and laying the pressure like they do here, or any of their other forwards, Teakle or Saint, who's moved up the ground a little bit, delivering this one. Here, they're actually outnumbered and they end up hitting the scoreboard because they have the runners running through. If you get to the contest too early, you're wasted. You can't come through and compete. But these guys are timing their run perfectly now that they've cleaned up their structure a little bit to be running towards goal, not away from goal. So it's been really impressive. The depth of their entries have improved, but also their smalls getting to the feet of Houghton and being really reliable to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ability to do that isn't just because of the representation they've got inside 50. It's the way they're choosing to send it forward as well. So in those clips we saw to the space, to where they're running. So it's a really smart shift from Lauren Arnell's side. Can they make finals off the back of it? Potentially.
Thanks to Kate and Gem there. And speaking of finals, let's bring up the round 9 fixture because, Sarah, some of these games are going to have massive repercussions when it comes to finals and the complexion of the 8 and the 4.
Yes, I may be in Darwin this week, but I am going to be sitting, right in front of the TV to watch these games on Thursday and Friday night. They have huge implications for how things go, and Geelong need to keep their season alive up against West Coast.
Looking forward to all of them. And on Sunday, we've got 3 crackers as well, starting down at Mars Stadium in Ballarat and finishing in Ipswich in Queensland. So footy, footy, footy everywhere you look. We're going to drill into 2 matches of the round, though. And Sarah, you said you're going to have your eyes on this one. The Adelaide Crows hosting North Melbourne. And this game we think could be won or decided with the forward entries because North's so efficient there and Adelaide not so much the case. And North's pressure is only going to exacerbate those issues for the Crows.
Yeah, so it's something that Matthew Clark's highlighted in his press conferences the last couple of weeks. So that cohesion between the mids and the forwards, and then the forwards' ability to execute has been not a serious issue because they're still winning, but it's been a bit of a concern for them. They've sort of improved in recent weeks, but the issue will be that North Melbourne's backline are so strong and have such a team-orientated system that they can, make things life really difficult for that Adelaide forward line. Caitlin Gould's in outstanding form, so they'll have to really lock down on her, and with Sarah Wright a test, that could make things a little bit interesting for the Roos backline. But it's just going to be a matter, Kate, of whether the Crows can tidy up that defensive those offensive issues when it comes to converting in front of the goal.
Yeah, exactly right. And it comes from further up the field as well, because we often see, as we can see here, North love to outnumber in their defensive 50. They love to set up a structure where they can get one of their players spare and sit in a spot where they can take those intercept marks. So if they're going to kick it long and high and not to a forward's advantage, it's going to be a really difficult day for them. But the other hand is they have improved the last couple of weeks, Adelaide, and the player that has been in that form is Caitlin Gould. She's taken 10 marks inside their forward 50 in the last 2 weeks, and they've been able to translate that towards goal. And we saw that clip against GWS. She kicked 3 goals in that game, could have kicked 4. So there's still little parts to their game that need to be better and a bit more efficient, because we've seen when you play North, you might get a window of 2 minutes. You might get a window of 30 seconds. When you've got the momentum against them in a quarter, you need to take the opportunities that you get. And if you're going to kick 3, 4, 5 behinds when you could have had really good opportunities to hit the scoreboard, they're going to punish you and make you pay.
And the other side of the coin when it comes to North Melbourne, Sarah, is that their forward line is so good as well. Like, if they don't get you in defence, they're going to get you in attack. We've spoke earlier about the improvement of those bottom sort of group of players, but Alice O'Loughlin and Bella Eddy, Neve Martin as well, if you give them half a sniff, they're really deadly in front of goal, just sort of sitting at the feet of Kate Shearlaw.
And the forward half game as well. Everyone loves forward half turnovers, but last week they did not give Essendon a forward 50 in the whole first term. So they won the first centre clearance, they kept winning centre clearance from there and did not get the ball inside their defensive 50 once because of that small forward pressure, the mids pressure and their ability to get their tools down the line and just compete. It was a fantastic performance from them.
On Saturday night, we head up to the NT, to TIO Stadium. This is the Dreamtime match, such a special one on the football calendar. It's also a high-stakes match, isn't it, for Essendon and Richmond, both teams vying for finals. Look at those beautiful shots up there. Sarah, you're about to board the flight up to the NT. How exciting is this going to be? Because it is such a highlight on the AFL calendar and now the AFLW one as well.
For sure. It was one of the highlights of a really quite grim lockdown period was watching the men's Dreamtime game up in Darwin a few years ago. Just the colour and excitement and how much the players enjoyed having the opportunity to perform on the big stage up there. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all goes. And then, as you said, the footy game itself. There's a lot riding on this one.
Now, I love the bomb,
yes.
The Bureau of Meteorology. In fact, Jane Bunn, I'm coming for you. But Sarah, I had a look at this.
Yes.
Very hot, very humid. 2 words for you. Ponytail, or is that one? I'm not sure, but I think the hair needs to be up, doesn't it?
Messy bun, I think. I haven't checked in with the AFL quite yet, but I'm anticipating that the heat policy will be in place. The killer will be the humidity. I've been keeping my eye on those minimums, and they're not budging below 26, 27. So it's an evening game, but with humidity at 80%, there's going to be a lot of slipping and sliding. I think composure is going to be needed, and lots of long kicks to make up a lot of territory.
Yeah, you'll see this sort of played at times like it is a wet weather game if the humidity does sort of hit those heights and stay there well into the evening as the temperature drops. So we've seen a lot of the teams utilising sort of the cold rooms up there, and there's no doubt that will be utilised again because both teams coming from Melbourne, this will be a real shock. We had the hottest day we've had in a long time this week, and it was 31 degrees. It was nothing like what that's going to feel like. So I know Richmond for a fact have been doing sort of heat chamber work during the week to try to acclimatise as much as they can, but that's going to play a real factor. Both of these teams are going to be exhausted come the end of the match.
Kate, Sarah, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sarah.
And thank you for joining us on The W Show. Thanks to NAB.
Join me, Sarah Hosking, and me, Sarah Rowe, as we take a look at life on and off the footy field. Tagged every Tuesday on afl.com.au/AFLW or wherever you get your podcasts.